Earlier this week, Max had an interview with Ian Hazakostas, the game director for World of Warcraft, discussing a lot of things regarding Dragonflight, from raiding Mythic Plus, all that kind of stuff, different systems that they're going to have in place. But as well as a kind of final question, Max asked about more unified feedback in the game for Dragonflight Alpha, because some classes we're seeing, like Hunter and stuff, are getting weekly updates for their spec and class trees, and then other specs like Druid and Priest have been left out to dry. So Max asked that question to Ian, and this is what Ian had to say.
Yeah, Druids and Priests, we hear you. We're gonna have information soon. Apologies for the silence. I know, you deserve better and you rightly expect better.
So with that being said, I wanted to take a look at a community-based Feral Druid talent tree that's been put together by somebody named Cyous, and it's a very good tree. There are a lot of things that I like about it. Some things I would maybe tweak and change and things, but I wanted to take you guys through that in this video today and just talk about some things that we could see from Feral. Some new things, some different things, and that a lot of us would probably like to see. So starting things off, I'll just take you through every kind of talent and what it does, and then I'll have maybe a couple minutes at the end talking through some of these things and my opinions on them. But the tree, as you can see, is a lot more... this is called Feral version 6, and you can see the tree itself is actually a lot more kind of open. You have a lot more choices, a lot more branches and connections. Currently, the Feral Druid tree that we have now has 36 connections, I believe, or 35, and Enhance, for example, has 57. So Feral is on more of the lower end, and potentially Enhance is on maybe the higher end, but with fewer connections means fewer potential build options, and it means that you're locked into more things. Also, the Feral tree that we have currently has a lot of 3-point nodes. This tree, as you can see, everything is a 1-point node, which makes it very interesting, and we can kind of talk about that in more detail, but let's just go through some of these talents for now. So, first we have Tiger's Fury, which is the first talent we're going to be looking at. Just standard Tiger Fury, right? Gives you energy, gives you damage increase. Lasts 8 seconds, not 10 though, something to take note of there. Then you have your auto attacks have a 10% chance to cause a clear casting state, making your next Shred, Thrash, or Swipe cost no energy. Standard Omen of Clarity, Tiger Fury, and Energy. Tiger Fury generates 5 energy every 1 second whilst active. Passive, your maximum energy is increased by 50. Interesting. Lucidity, consuming Omen of Clarity, increases your damage by 2% for 9 seconds. Stacks up to 3 times. Quite cool. Iron Feather Headdress increases your armor while in cat form by 75% and increases your agility by 25% of your armor whilst in cat form. This is quite an interesting ability because Feral currently on the talent tree, I don't believe we have any actual utility-based abilities. You could argue Infected Wounds, but if you talk to me about Infected Wounds, I might just ban you. In terms of other utility, I mean, we have Predatory Swiftness again as well, but those are like the only 2 things that you could argue are any kind of utility. So something like this, having increased armor would be quite nice. Defensive capabilities would be nice. Getting something more, not just from stuff from the class tree, allows you to then take stuff from the class tree that you maybe, aim for more utility because you don't necessarily need the defensive stuff. Ambush Predator. While stealth, your rake deals 60% increased damage and stuns target. While stealth, your shred deals... So this is just standard, jungle stalker, basically. Iron Tip Claws. Your attacks ignore 10% of the target's armor. Auto attacks deal 50% increased damage. Your shred and swipe slows enemy by 50% for 8 seconds. So Armor Shred's coming back to Feral, I think would actually be really cool. I wish that it was more of like an application effect, so like mobs that you hit have their armor shredded. That would be cool, but I understand that there would be complexities there in actually just coding that and stuff and actually integrating that into fights, but then also would it make Feral too strong and stuff, and I don't know, there's like weird realms you get into with bringing back an armor shred. The slow effect of Shred and Swipe, I think that would be cool. I think it would be good if it was Rake and Thrash, though. But that's cool. Like a bleed effect causing mobs to be slowed. But that's cool. Sharpened Claws. Shred and Swipe deals 25% increased damage. In addition, Shred generates 1 additional combat point while stealthed. So standard stuff. We have that already, basically. Jungle Fury. While Tiger Fury is active, your auto attacks deal 100% increased damage. Interesting. I thought about it being affecting attack haste, but I was told that that can have some kind of, I don't know, funky interactions or can cause some pretty significant issues, or maybe it's to do with like the rest of the tree, and if your attack speed is increased then the rest of the tree is affected. So okay, fair enough. Scent of Blood, pretty standard stuff. But then Shred and Swipe increase the direct damage of your next thrash by 20%, stacking up to 3 times. So that would be cool, increasing that Shred or that Swipe plus Thrash interaction even more so on AoE and single target. Moment of Clarity, standard. Berserk, unleash a roar causing enemies to bleed 240% attack power over 12 seconds. Damage reduced beyond 8 targets. Enhances your combat abilities. Last 20 seconds. Rake and Shred deal damage as though you're stealth. Energy cost reduced by 20%. So this is kind of a combination of multiple berserks in one, and it's also the sickle of the lion effect, but at a reduced rate, 60% reduced, because current is 320% attack power. This is 240 as far as I'm aware. So I like that. I'd like for sickle to come back into the fray. I don't think it needs to be that strong though, and we'll get into why that is in the future, but I think this is quite good. Taste for Blood. Ferocious Bite deals 1% increased damage for each of your bleed effects on the target, but exponentially grows. So the more bleeds you get, the more rapid the bleed, or the increased effect of the bleed. Bleeds counted: Rip, Rake, Thrash, Berserk, and Feral Frenzy, pulling you up to a potential 16% increased damage of your bleed effects on a target, which is quite good. It would be a short-term thing, but it would be quite cool, especially if you combine that with Feral Frenzy on the tree, and then if you also take Convoke, right? Be quite good. Savage Roar, standard. Survival Instincts increases the number of charges of Survival Instincts by 1, but increases the cooldown by 120 seconds. Reduces damage taken by 70%, not 60 that we currently have. Charges 1 or 2 with this talent, so it would give you a second charge of Survival Instincts, right? And then cooldown would go from 2 minutes to 4 minutes. I think that's fine. If it was 3 minutes to 5 minutes, I'd be like, oh, why have we got a 3 and 5 minute cooldown? But, or why would it take us to a 5 minute cooldown? That would be kind of sad. But this would be basically every 2 minutes you'd have a Survival Instincts. So I'd be cool with that. Then Predator. The bonus damage of your Tiger's Fury is increased by an additional 5%. Tiger's Fury lasts 50% longer. So not like just mobs reset your Tiger's Fury on kill. Interesting change. We'll look into that more later. Ravenous Hunger. Every 2 seconds while Berserk is active, you gain Ravenous Hunger, increasing your damage done, critical strike, and haste by 1%. Stacks up to 10 times. So basically Venthea, Feral, Ravenous Frenzy. While prowling within 25 yards of your target, Ravenous Hunger may accumulate stacks. Target must be hostile. Bonus effects are only active while Berserk is active. So this is quite cool. You can like build up your stacks whilst around an enemy, and then you hit Berserk, and then you immediately get like your max stacks, which is quite interesting. You know, quite quirky, quite cool. Brutality. You gain 10% more benefit from crit strikes effects. Increases your crit hit damage by an additional 20%, up from the normal 200%. Similar to Fire Mage passive for bonus crit strike from gear. This just enhances crit strike for you. Unrelenting Hunter. Dash and Tiger Dash have 2 charges. Good, because it's the best talent. Your movement speed cannot be reduced below 100% whilst in cat form, and you're immune to root effects while Dash or Tiger's Fury is active. I like that. People think it could be busted in PvP, but I like it. Primal Wrath. Standard. Ashamane's Unrelenting Hunt. Channel the spirit of Ashamane to destroy powerful effects and shields. Deal up to 1600% AP to shields. This dispel is potent enough to remove magic effects that are normally undispellable. 1.5 minute cooldown, costs 100 energy to cast. So this is basically like a nuke. This is an EMP. Think of it being really good in, I guess you could look at it something like PvP. It would be really strong, but also something like Hakar, it would be really good, where you have a shield and you need to burst through it. Also good Season 4 of the affix, the Sharded affix, with Zolgamux. This would be good there. That kind of stuff, right? So, interesting. I kind of like the idea. Could be cool if it was some kind of armor shred as well, going down that avenue. Then you also get 9th life, which is just a cheat death. Then you have Maim. Maim and Skullbash leave the target vulnerable to all damage sources by 10%, lasts 6 seconds, does not stack with similar effects. Skullbash must be a successful interrupt. What I would prefer to see with this is potentially Maim becoming like an AoE stun that hits 5 mobs, maybe, and have its cooldown increased from, what, 24 seconds? 20-second cooldown. Have it increase from a 20-second cooldown to, like, a minute cooldown or something, or like 45-second cooldown, but it stuns 5 to 8 mobs. I'd like to see that. Give Feral an AoE stun, like other melee. Cool. Shroud of Ashmain. Envelop enemies in the target area with a shadowy mist, reducing the range at which you will it will attack by 10 yards. Enemies out of combat will be distracted for a short time. So this is basically rogue distract, okay? And also kind of like a mind soothe, rogue distract kind of thing. Enemies who attempt to leave the affected area are stunned for 6 seconds. So if you throw that down and then you pull mobs out, it stuns them. So kind of cool, could be interesting. Shriek of the Haunted Forest. Shriek of the Haunted Forest let out a horrific screech, causing all enemies within 25 yards to be silenced for 4 seconds. Successful interrupts with Skullbash reduces the cooldown of Shriek of the Haunted Forest by 10 seconds. 1.5 minute cooldown. So originally when we looked at this stuff on stream, I was thinking to myself like, oh, an AoE silence for Feral, maybe that would be too strong. But I thought it would lead into the fact that Balanced would have an AoE silence, so Feral could have an AoE silence. It would kind of work. It kind of makes sense from like a, you know, from a thematic cat standpoint. You like, literally, you're so scary and vicious that the enemy is just stunned, right? They're quivering. So it kind of makes sense. They're paralyzed, right? But then they went and and then I was like, oh, is it going to be too strong? And then they gave it to Demon Hunter. So they gave it to Havoc Demon Hunter. Havoc Demon Hunter is now going to have an AoE silence. So, screw it. I don't mind it. I'll take it. So Fairy Fire, this is new. I actually haven't seen this yet on the tree. Reduces the target's casting speed by 30%. Last 30 seconds. Cooldown 6 seconds. Doubled against players. Interesting. I don't know if that reduces, like, players are affected by 60% or if it reduces it to a minute. But interesting talent. Not an armor shred, but okay. That's still interesting. Kind of like a warlock-esque thing with their curses. Merciless Vice. Visage of Ashmain appears behind the target and clamps down on their neck. The Visage of Ashmain will leap to the destination with the victim. Fly with me, but for enemies. Yeah, this is something that we joked around. Like, I joked around with it on stream, and I was like, oh, wouldn't it be funny? Like, what if Feral could do leap, you know, fly with me, but like with an enemy, and you can take, like, say there's a mob in Sanguine, you could jump to it, grip it with your claws, and then jump out and like bring it into the pack, kind of like a DK grip, but but extra steps, right? Kind of, and you don't have to be positioned as well. But that would be kind of cool, kind of interesting. Would it be too strong? I don't know. With a lot of stuff, it's like, oh, is it too strong to give these things? But I don't know. Then you have Play Dead, which is a feigned death for Feral. Carnivorous Instincts. Tiger's Fury energizes your party, increasing their haste by 3% while Tiger's Fury is active. So, giving your whole party haste, which is pretty bonkers. Also increases your energy regen by 10%, and you benefit from the 3% haste as well. I would like if this was something like you permanently had 3% haste as Feral, but then you also give it to your party during Tiger's Fury. But this is again why you wouldn't have Predator refresh your Tiger's Fury. You would have it become 12 seconds. So you could have it up for roughly, what, 36%, 38% of the time, something like 40% of the time, something like that. And then Katakuria, Omen of Clarity, can accumulate an additional 1 charge, which would work well with this Lucidity thing where you get increased damage whenever you proc your Omen. So that would kind of work. You take Cat Eye there. You then have Twisted Claws. Tiger's Fury causes your next Rake to apply to all enemies. So this is where I think that the interesting effect works with Berserk, where like you have a reduced power of Berserk with your Sickle of the Lion. So you have reduced Sickle effect. But you can, sorry, no, ignore me. No, I'm waiting to get to Blood Mist. Ignore me. No, cut that. Tiger's Fury causes your next Rake to apply to all nearby enemies. Yes. Ah, interesting talent. Yes, I like I like this. I don't know if maybe you should reduce it to 8 enemies, because an uncapped rake every 30 seconds would be really, really strong, because you don't probably only need it once every combat, and you would do bonkers damage. Imagine that. Imagine if every enemy in a mass AoE had Rake on them and also had Sickle of the Lion on them, plus Primal Wrath Rip. Like, your damage would just be absolutely bonkers. You know, so I feel like that could maybe be overtuned. So if you reduce it to something like 8 targets, sure. Tiger Tree causes your next finishing move to restore 3 combo points. I have Fearful Symmetry. Yeah, but I would just take Twisted Claws every time. Then Shadow Thrash. Swipe and Thrash have a 20% chance to cause a Shadow Thrash. Shadow Thrash inflicting 65% of attack power as shadow damage. Deals reduced damage beyond 5 targets. I love Shadow Thrash. I think it's really... I just love it. Thematic. I like it. You just, like, see it happen and you're like, oh, nice. A little bonus. It's not incredibly strong, but I like it. You then have Blood Mist. Oh, and also, I wonder if that would interact with Scent of Blood, because your Thrash increases your, you know, doing Shadow Thrash stuff. Doing Scent of Blood stuff. Would that work with Shadow Thrash? Be interesting. Maybe not, because it's not Thrash, it's Shadow Thrash. Blood Mist then. So your finishing moves have a 3% chance per combo point, so 15% chance to activate Berserk for 6 seconds. If Berserk is already active, Blood Mist extends the duration by 6 seconds. Each time this fails to trigger, the chance is increased by 0.5% per combo point. So this would work in well with Sickle of the Lion, and this is why I think, like, Blood Mist with Sickle could be too strong if it procced like a full power Sickle. So reduce the power of Sickle, and then you're proccing it more often with this. I'm cool with that. You could even put it in the Blood Mist text where it's like, imagine if Berserk Sickle was 320%, and then like this reduces it lower, and even if it was 50% of the effect, that would be fine. Soul of the Forest, finishing move, grants 5 energy per combo point spent, and deal 5% increased damage. Cool. Circle of Life and Death, your damage over time effect, deal their damage in 25% less time, and your healing, yeah, just circle, right? Just circle. Behemoth Headhunter, finishing moves extend the duration of Tiger's Fury by 0.3 seconds per combo point spent. So that'd be kind of cool if you play it in with Carnivorous Instinct with the haste. Sabertooth, Ferocious Bite causes the target to suffer 50% more damage from your bleed effects for 9 seconds. Ferocious Bite refreshes Rip if the target is below 25% health. So reducing the dependency on Sabertooth to just like refresh your Rip perma becomes an execute once again, which is what I want to see. Also increases your potency of your bleeds. Fantastic. There are a few spells or a few like talents in here that just really increase the potency of your bleeds. The Rake Spread, getting, you know, increased like bleed effect amplifications. I think there was another one over here somewhere. You know, it's good. Yeah, this Taste of Blood, like, it's good to see that. That's what you want to see. And then Trophy Hunter, whenever your Ferocious Bite critically strikes a powerful enemy, increase the power of your Mastery by 8% for 30 seconds. This effect stacks up to 3 times, so you can get 24% increased Mastery. The duration is not refreshed when gaining additional applications. Players count as powerful enemies. So that could be pretty powerful. You take it with Sabertooth, you get massive mastery whenever you're Ferocious Biting and increased bleed effect. It's just like stacking together. Could be way too strong. You'd have to maybe tune that, but that's fine. Convoke is Convoke, 16 spells, 90-second cooldown. Note that though. Not 2 minutes, 1 minute 30. Lacerations, Shred, and Swipe causes enemies to suffer 6% increased damage from your Rip and Rake. Stacks up to 3 times. New applications of this effect do not refresh the duration. Shred and Swipe, increasing your Rip and your Rake. So Lacerations with Primal Wrath, with Scent of Blood, it all works together to increase your like bleed damage. Blood Talons, when you use 3 different abilities, yada yada yada, it's Blood Talons. Adaptive Swarm, command a swarm that heals or deals shadow damage over 12 seconds to a target, increases the effectiveness of periodic effects on them by 25%. Finds the new target upon expiration. And then Adaptive Swarm has a chance to jump, 60% chance to jump. So it's Adaptive Swarm, but it's everything combined into one, instead of the current system where it's a 3-point talent. Feral Frenzy then, just Feral Frenzy. Apex Predator is Apex Predator. Now, I'll come back to these 2 talents because I think they're really cool. I'll save them for last. Inevitable Demise, your periodic damage from Rip and Rake have a chance to generate a combo point. Each time, so this is lacerations from current conduits. Each time Rip deals periodic damage to an enemy below 25% health, the victim receives 4% more damage from your Rip. This effect stacks up to 99 times. So you could have this. You know what I think would also be cool is if this was instead just your Rip had a chance to be reapplied to your target. How would that work with Primal Wrath? Could potentially be too strong. You know, I could see that being too strong. But kind of like a Shadow Rip, I think would be interesting as well. Beast of Sanguine Horror. Each time Thrash deals periodic damage, there's a chance your next Ferocious Bite consumes up to 6 seconds to deal bonus damage. When an enemy dies with one of your bleeds active, all your rake effects will be refreshed to their full duration. Interesting. Could work really interestingly with your Tiger Fury and your Twisted Claws. I'd like to see that. Next we have, we have Incarnation, Demonbane Sickle. So this is a choice node. So you have Incarnation, Demonbane Sickle. Activating Convoke the Spirits grants Incarnation for 20 seconds. Demonbane Sickle releases an eruption of shadow damage, dealing 220% AP. In addition, this effect triggers every 4th ability you cast during Demonbane Sickle. So this is like a Sickle of the Lion on crack, and it lines up with your Convoke, or is triggered by your Convoke. It also reduces your Convoke down to a minute instead of 90 seconds, and then passive, Moonfire gains Lunar Inspiration and Twin Moons. So really, really interesting. You then have the alternative, which is Flame Scythe Hellcat. Activating Convoke grants Flame Scythe Hellcat, lasts 20 seconds. Flame Scythe Hellcat releases a wave of fire damage, dealing 670% AP, split between nearby enemies. Your auto attacks deal 50% additional damage as fire, and hit all enemies while Flame Scythe Hellcat is active. Damage is reduced beyond 8 targets. So this is where you'd get if you take the previous talent, somewhere up here, increasing auto attack damage by 100%. It's somewhere here. Somewhere here. Where is it? I can't remember where it is, but there's the ability that increases your auto attack damage by 100%. And then you take that, and you... While attack tree is active, your auto attacks deal 100% increased damage. So you take that, plus you get this, so it's 150% increased damage as fire, and it hits all enemies. And then it reduces the cooldown to 60 seconds, not 90 seconds. And then Sunfire is castable while in cat form. I really love this idea of this talent, where you have this, you know, Twin Moons, kind of cleave, single target kind of deal, Lunar Inspiration, or you have Sunfire, castable in cat form, more AoE. You have this pulsing AoE damage, and I like this idea of having this split between these two potential options, and then the, like, effect it'll have on your playstyle, kind of, with, like, different Sunfire and Moonfire uses. I kind of like it. It's interesting. It could probably be tuned, could probably be moved around, maybe a bit too strong in general, but could be tuned, moved around a bit, but I really like it. Like, when you compare that to Apex, obviously this is just, like, infinitely better, and, like, this compared to anything else on this row is just insanely good, so you'd have to, like, tune the numbers, but I like it. I like the ideas. In general, for this tree, I like it. I think it's so much better than what we currently have. It has so much just thought to it. It has so much kind of like new interesting abilities, new interesting interactions. A lot of it keeps our core rotation of swiping, thrashing, shredding, raking, primal wrathing, ripping. Like, it keeps our core rotation, but it allows for these different interactions to stack up. You can have bleed builds, you can have like these bite style builds, high mastery, you can have this auto attack deal going on, flame scythe and stuff, jungle. You have things that proc off Tiger Fury, so you can play around your Tiger Fury, you can play around Convoke, you can play around Berserk, you can play around Blood Mist and raking, you can rake spread. There's a lot of different things you can do with this build. You could do this kind of taste for blood, feral frenzy, single target, high bleed, high mastery kind of style. I like the fact that there's utility in the feral tree, not just damage, which is what we currently have. It's all damage, no utility, there's nothing interesting, no, like, just even this, right? Having an effect on our dash. Oh, now we have 2 charges of Tiger Dash. Wow, that's really cool. I really want that talent now, personally. I always play it anyway. But it's like, the tree that we currently have is so lacking. It feels like this is a new talent tree, but compared to some of the talent trees that have come out 3 months later than this talent tree, or 2 months later, right? This feels like an outdated tree. This feels like this was made in 2008, and it feels like trees that we're seeing from like Rogue, from Enhance, from like, I don't know, Evoca, like whatever it may be, Mage, Warlock getting refreshments and stuff, like all these trees that just look so much more modern compared to what Feral is getting. So I really like this. It definitely needs some tuning, definitely needs some kind of recalculation in parts. You could potentially remove and change some talents, but I really like the general theme, the idea, the different builds. For me, I'd love to see Blizzard kind of take from this, and just from the community in general. Like, I'd like to see Blizzard just do something. Ian said something's coming. I'll say to you guys, be optimistic if you want. Change isn't always a good thing. I'm gonna wait. Like, I'm not holding my breath and going, oh no, they're gonna fix it. They're gonna fix it. They might make it worse. They might half-ass it. It might come in, they've improved it slightly, and they go, all right, that's done. Like, I want to see love, commitment, and interest in this spec really getting the attention it needs. But this was just like a fun community-based tree. Thank you, Cyous, for giving us this. This is Feral version 6. You see I've got 3, 4, 5, 6 that I've looked all through. But thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. See ya in the next one.